And this is going to be the Gimbal Control Components update. This is for Friday, April 14th, 2023. Dear Stormworkers, this week we add new gimbal controls to some lights, cameras, and laser components. These components now include a new composite input allowing their direction to be controlled with logic. This makes it easier for builders to control and aim lights, cameras, and lasers, where previously players would have had to use robotic parts and complex physics systems to move small parts. This new feature is generally useful for targeting and viewing systems, where lasers are used to scan depth or cameras are used as aiming reticles for weapons systems, allowing the player to easily manage drop and movement. Aiming lights means it is now easier to target lights with fine control, even on small builds. For cosmetic purposes, the control of lights mean you can aim small spotlights, such as dipped headlights, or any situation where you just want to direct light in a tuned direction, such as illuminating an area with a spotlight. As well as this new feature, there are several useful fixes. Please see patch notes below for full details. Much love, Stormworks developers. Let's go into the patch notes. Feature gimbal controlled light, camera, and laser components. Rework rescaled, stabilized gimbal camera inputs after the dead zone to start from zero, finer control. Third person vehicle camera fixed yaw jitter. Fixed cooldown on multiplayer hangar glass door. Not sure what that is. Fog rain changing underwater lighting colors. Fixed fog of war not correctly clearing beyond 256 tiles, causing fogged regions to appear. Resolve data issue parsing composite right microcontroller modules. Fixed rotated edit grids detecting reclaiming vehicle outside their bounds. Fixed gimbal camera laser raycast interacted with non-colliding physics. Let's go ahead and we'll look at the new parts. All right, so I made a quick little test bench here. We have a couple parts. I'm not sure if these are going to be all the parts. I'll have to go through them all, but currently it's just going to kind of showcase what these are doing. So let's look at these new parts. So as you can see, we have an arrow pointing forward. We have an arrow pointing up. This should be the indication that these are these new parts. Up arrow, forward arrow. You can see them on these. That's a spotlight. This is a laser. This here is a camera. Let's go have this other spotlight, see if it's on here as well. As you can see, it's also on this here as well. The benefit of this is you have one block. That's the benefit of this. Before, for example, let's say I wanted to make this light tilt here. You often see this. The devs said it in their description that you had people who wanted to just tilt their lights down. Say you had a truck or a car and you wanted to just gently tilt the light down so that it would actually hit the road in front of you. What is such a novel concept. That's how big you'd have to have it. So you can see we'd have a pivot, we'd have that on there, and so you'd have to have a much larger build to be able to do that. You'd have to have sub bodies. These are all things that tax it. So let's go ahead and we'll make a quick microcontroller here. So what we're gonna do here is we have a panel. And so I'm going to put a quick panel in here. I'll quickly go through and I'll show you how these work as well. And so we'll have a panel here, and what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put an arrow button, do up. We'll go ahead and do arrow button up. We'll make it a push. We'll make it channel 1. This will be right. It'll be an arrow button to the right. It'll be a push, be channel 2. We'll make this down. We'll do an arrow button. We'll go down. Make that push channel 3. And then we'll make this left. That will be an arrow button to the left, push button, that will be channel 4. Okay, so if we look here, we also get a new composite. So as we look at these different lights, lasers, and cameras, we get this composite signal. So what I'm going to do is go to a simple microcontroller. I called it light just because. We're going to go panel to this microcontroller. You can make a real simple microcontroller here. So let's go here. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a couple up-down counters. So I'm not sure exactly where this is going to go yet, so we'll play with this, but I'll enable this. We'll make it -1, 1. These can probably change later. I'm going to make that 0.001 so we can do fine control. Panel, this is going to be up, so we're going to read on-offs here, so we'll need 4 of these. And there's 4. Let's number these out. 2, 3, and 4. All right, and then the panel is going to connect to these here. So 1 and 3 are going to be our up-downs. And then 2 and 4 are going to be our side-to-sides. All right, so we're going to go into this up-down counter like so. And that's going to read out a value. I'm going to also do the same here. And this is also going to read out a value. All right, and that's set. right there. And then what we need to do is we need to write them as numbers. And so what we can do here is let's update this quick before I do it. But if we go back to the logic composite and we hover over it, it says inputs for spotlight XY pivot is value 1. And then the value 2 is the Y. So X is generally up, down. Y is generally yaw. So let's think of it as that way. And so let's go back in here. So this will be channel 1 to start. 2 channels. That'll be 1 and 2. And so this with composite is going to make it nice and compact. We should be able to run this. Let's just update this. And I'm going to just quickly run infinite electricity to everything. But let's just make sure everything's connected. So I'm actually going to connect them to all. So right here where it says light, I'm going to connect to this pivot, and to this one here. As you see, they say pivot. And that's going to give me all the values. Let's go here. We'll take a monitor. And let's make it a big old Johnny here. Let's just do this one here. We'll make a monitor here because this is a camera. And this is going to be a laser, so I'm just going to do a toggle. And we'll go toggle, toggle. And then what we want to do is if we switch over to the data, we can go here. We can still turn our lights on. And this one will turn our laser on. And then we'll do one more for the monitor here. And we can turn our monitor on like so. And then we just need to go to video. Video can go right in there, and that should do that. All right, good. So let's go ahead and we'll spawn this. And I'm going to turn on infinite electricity here, just so I don't have to use it. All right, so let's look at this. So before, again, as I showed you, we had to have a ton of space. So let's turn on the light here if I can. All right, let me see. Are you on, light? And what we can do here is see the lights on there. And so if we look at the ground here, I kind of have the setup a little bit crooked, but let's go up. And so as you can see, the light is now moving. Actually, that's backwards. I have it backwards. So I have them plugged in the wrong channel. So this is actually left right here, which just means I put it in the wrong channel. But as you can see, this is nice because let's say you have landing lights on an airplane, right? And they're on the wings, and they're on the wing tips. Well, you actually want the lights to have what's known as convergence, where the two lights aim at one another. And so what you could do is you could go in like this and have them converge so the two lights will paint the middle of the aircraft. So you can see, you can actually physically, I think, see this moving. And so what this allows us to do is instead of having that big setup, instead of having to have multiple physics bodies, we can have one physics body with this light, and we do fine tuning. We can also go up, down. Again, I hooked them up backwards. You can see the light is coming down. So let's say that, you know, you're sitting in your car and your car is very tall and the light's shining way out here. Well, you want to be lighting the road right in front of you. For example, on my motorcycle, when you take your motorcycle in for an inspection sticker, they have a little gauge in the wall and the light has to hit a certain area. And if it doesn't, what they do is they tilt down the light on your motorcycle. They do the same thing on cars. They can tilt the lights down. They loosen the bolts, tilt the lights down. And so this is a great feature. I'm glad the devs have added that. We have the laser here. As you can see, now the laser is pointing down. So this will now, instead of having to put this on a pivot, as you notice, I can tilt the laser up and down. So I just have the channels backwards. But as you can see, I can tilt this laser down if I want. So if I have, there are multiple, applications for this, but it allows you to tilt it. It also will allow you to move it left and right laterally. Let's turn on the monitor here. This is really cool for these types of cameras. And I'll give you an example here in a second. Let me shut that light off so I'm not looking at it. And as you can see, I can gently tilt my camera up. I can gently tilt my camera down. And so let me show you a quick application for this. And so what I like to do is in some of my aircraft, let me just get one of the Cap Air jets here. So this is the Cap Air jet. If you look in my tail here, I have a camera. Now the issue with this is this camera, I ideally want it to be tilting down so I can see right in front of my aircraft. Well, before you would have to put this on a pivot. Now you don't have to. You can do a gentle tilt down if you want. So you can angle these cameras where they need to be. This, I think, is a huge thing. Before, you would have needed to take a pivot and stick that in there. So this is a very welcomed addition, in my opinion. I think this is nice. It keeps a nice, compact it allows you to have a nice compact system to be able to gently tilt things like your lights, your cameras, and your lasers. So I think this is a great update. I'm glad to see it. I would like some more miniaturization and simplification of these types of things so we can do small adjustments like this. So really happy with this. There was some confusion, it appears. Some people thought these were going to be full, huge gimbals. They never said that. I can read the exact quote from last week. I have seen already some comments. People read the headline and they did not read the actual text, which if you don't want to read the text, I put one of these out every week in a short format. That's me just reading it to you if you don't want to read it. But if it says right here, next week we'll bring gimbal support to some components that players frequently need to rotate, such as small cameras, laser spotlights, etc. These new parts will allow logic to rotate their direction just 1/8 of a turn. People were thinking these were going to be 100% gimbals, up, down, left, rights. No, they said very clearly last week, the announcement week for this, they will rotate their direction just 1/8 of a turn. I don't know how they could be any more clear with that, but a lot of people just read the headline or were listening to gossip and didn't understand what the devs had actually literally said in the release. What was going to be coming to this, but that is exactly what they said, and they even said dipped headlights. So they are being pretty specific on what this was. So I think this is still a great addition. This really makes it much more compact. It makes it so that we can add these little changes on our vehicles, a little bit of extra detail. We can do things like light convergence on airplanes. We can do tilted lights on cars, and I think the big one is going to be the cameras, the ability to do a gentle tilt on a camera without having to put it on some large pivot system. Theoretically, if you wanted to tip the old school camera, if you wanted to be able to yaw left, right, and up, down, you would need 2 pivots. You're having multiple physics bodies. You now have 3 physics bodies for every camera you want. Now you don't have to add physics bodies. This should help with all sorts of lag. It should help with eliminate or reducing some of your microcontrollers you're going to need, electrical inputs, all this stuff. So I think this is a great addition to the game, and I hope you guys enjoy it. See you in the next one. Bye.